I welcome you in this session. Topic of this session is concept of agricultural policy. In this session we will understand what is meant by agriculture policy, how agriculture policy mean to the people, how it affect the our common people, and our task is to understand the agriculture policy. And for understanding the agriculture policy we have to understand what is agriculture and what is the policy. So there are two terms, agriculture and policy. So we have to understand the what is the meaning of agriculture policy, and before that we will also talk about why there is a need for agriculture policy in the country, why there is a need for development of agriculture in the country. So let us start. Agriculture sector has gone a number of changes after independence. We used to import the food grain, and now we are having the surplus food grain in our country. We used to depend on other country to feed our people, to provide the nutritious food to our people in the country. But now we have gone a tremendous growth in the agriculture sector, particularly in the food grain sectors. And our food grain production, like it was 50 million ton in the 1950, now it has reached to around 280 million ton in 2017-18. So we have got tremendous growth in the agriculture sector, in pulses production, in the oilseed production, in food production, in the vegetable production, in the milk production, in all sector of agriculture we have got tremendous growth. And with this growth, actually we have faced a number of problems in the agriculture sector also, like we are facing our resources, our natural resources. The quality of the natural resources is declining over the period of time. There are several problems are coming in the agriculture sector. Sometimes farmers face problem related to price, and they are not getting the remunerative prices. The farmers say farmers sometimes they are not having the sufficient income to fulfill the requirement of their family. And in 1950s, actually we have seen there are food shortage was a common problem in our country. And we used to import the food grain, and to improve the condition in the agriculture sector in the country, a number of policy measures have been adopted, and which results in the enhancement in the food grain production in the country. And 50s, actually what we have done, we have started intensive agriculture programs to increase the food grain production, to increase the agriculture production, and for that a number of programs we have started that time. And for increasing the agriculture production, actually the government what they have done, they have adopted two types of policy. One is the supply side policy, another is the demand side policies. And all this policy actually that brought that time the green revolution. Supply side policy means the increasing the agriculture production in the country. So we have adopted the land reforms, we have adopted the development and diffusion of new farm technologies, so the productivity can be increased. Then government announced the price support for the agricultural commodities, agriculture produce, and then institutional credit were provided. For that purpose, we have done the commercialization of the bank, nationalization of the banks actually we have done. Then government has increased the public investment in the agriculture infrastructure development, particularly for the irrigation system development. So a lot of supply side policy were announced by the government, a lot of action were taken by the government to increase the agriculture production. Then government also announced a number of demand side policies, particularly to support the agriculture produce in the market. So state intervention in terms of agriculture marketing facilities, then public procurement of food grains, then operation of the public distribution system. So demand side policy is basically when the production is there in the country, how this production should reach to our people, and also increase the capacity of the people to purchase the agriculture produce from the market. So demand side and supply side policy were adopted, and that has resulted we have seen the green revolution in the country. And for when we see the there is an increase in agriculture production. There are few few intervention from the government side. So, there are few factors which have contributed a lot in the increasing the agricultural development in the country and bringing the self-sufficiency in the food grain production. And so, for that one of the major factor is the policy intervention. We have seen the demand side policy and supply side policy. Another is our scientific community, our researchers, the agriculture scientists, they have contributed a lot in the agriculture development. Their persistent efforts, their sincere efforts, that has increased the productivity of the agriculture sectors by bringing the new improved technology for agriculture production in terms of bringing the high yielding variety seeds, recommending the practices for the management of pest and diseases, and the new methods of irrigation, and also the extension workers. They have transferred this technology which are developed in the research institution, in the research field. They have brought this research technology to the farmers field, and they also convey the problem faced by the farmer to our scientific community. Then third most important reasons for the increasing agriculture production is the enthusiasm or dynamism of the farmers in adoption of the modern farm technologies. Farmers of farming community particularly, they have done lot of hard work and they have applied actually all the new modern farm technology in their fields. They have purchased the input from the market. They have done very good management practices that has increased the agriculture production in the country and ultimately agriculture development in the country. So, but now the agriculture is almost radically changed from the last 50-60 years. We have seen the agriculture of today is different from the agriculture that was during the Green Revolution period or post-Green Revolution period. And there are different changes you can see. One is there is a slowdown in the productivity growth. Now the productivity growth is increasing, but the growth is slow. Reason may be for that, we have utilized lot of natural resources. So there is a limit to utilize the natural resources, the land productivity, soil fertility, and the quality of waters. So there is a limit. So because of that limit, our productivity growth is now slowed down. And there is another change in the rise in the input cost. The cost of farm input has increased a lot. The fertilizer, the price in the market, the high yielding variety seed, the farm machinery cost, all these prices has increased. The cost of the input has increased. That's why the farmers are facing a problem. And farmers face the volatility of the market, which are caused by the our integration with the global economy. Sometimes the agriculture produce prices is affected more by the international market than the domestic market. So after the globalization, farmers are facing the agriculture prices are, we have seen there are a lot of fluctuation in the prices. And another reason for the volatility in the market prices of agriculture produce is the changing consumer taste and preferences. The consumer also shifting from the food grain, cereal based food to the nutritious. They are demanding for the milk, they are demanding for vegetables, they are demanding for fruits, so highly nutritious food they are consumers are shifting. So this is also another change we are seeing. Then the policy goals, the instruments and sectoral perspective of agriculture is also changing over the period of time. In 50s or 60s, our goal was to increase the agriculture production of the cereals and pulses, but now the goal is to have the more of the incomes. The government have the target to increase the profit, the income of the farmers by 50%, or they want to increase the farmers income by double. They want to do the farmers income double by 2022. So such type of goals are there, and there are new instruments are coming up, keeping in the trend in the international market. And there are sectoral perspective, new sectors are coming up, sub sectors are increasing, like the horticulture sector, the milk sector, they are and they have the growth rate more than our cereal crops. So these are the changes are coming up in the agriculture sector. And then let us understand why there is a need for agricultural development in the country. The agriculture is a major economic activity. Why? Because it is a source of growth of national economy. Actually, when there is a growth in the agriculture sector, there is a growth, you will find the growth in the national economy. Generally, we say if you want to find the growth rate of 8% in the national economy, we should have a 4% growth in the agriculture sector. So agriculture is a major source of growth of national economy. Then agriculture sector provides lot of investment opportunity for the private sector, because agriculture has become input intensive. Lot of new modern inputs like high yielding variety seeds, the fertilizers, the pesticides, the farm machinery. So for that, the agriculture sector provides the investment opportunity to the private sectors, and the private sector make investment in the agriculture sectors. And then another is the reason for need in the agriculture development is the agriculture sector is the prime driver for the agriculture based industries and rural non-farm sectors. Some of the industries, they are totally depend on the agriculture sector for their raw material, like textile industries, the sugarcane industry, and the food processing industry. So and even in the non-farm sectors in the rural area, like cottage industry, you will see the rural artisans are there. For there, the agriculture sector is very important, and the agriculture is the source of food security. Like we have 130 crore people in the country, and in order to provide the sufficient quality nutritious food, we need to have growth in the agriculture sector. Then another importance of agriculture sector is it is the livelihood alternative. Alternative means agriculture sector provides the employment to the large section of people in the country, and globally when we see the around 86% of rural people depend on agriculture sector for their income and employment. And in the developing country, we see more than 50% of people who live in the rural areas, and out of that rural population, around 70 to 80% rural people, they are totally dependent on the agriculture sectors. The agriculture sector importance is also related to the other sector of the economy. Agriculture sector linkage with the industrial sectors, because agriculture sector provide raw material to the industry, and some of the agriculture sector provide the market for industrial product. Actually, some of the industrial products which are used in the agriculture sector as an input, like farm machinery, the fertilizers. Agriculture sector also provides the market for industrial product, like the population of the rural area, actually they consume the many from the industrial sectors, and agriculture saving also provide an investment opportunity for the industrial sectors. And there is also linkage with the external economies, because agriculture sector is a net exporter, and in our country basically we import more. So we have very positive terms of trade in agriculture sector. Now the time to understand what is the agriculture policy. This is the main agenda of this session, and in order to understand the agriculture policy term, this term is basically comprised of two words. One is the agriculture, another is the policy. So first we have to understand what is the agriculture, then we will move to the policy. So agriculture basically this word is taken from the Latin words. This word is derived from the Latin word and it comprised of two words, ager and cultura. Ager means field and cultura means cultivation. So literary meaning of agriculture is the tillage or cultivation of soil of a field. And in what we understand by agriculture, it is basically it includes all the activities related to the production of food, feed, fiber, fuel and other products through the systematic raising of plants and rearing of animals. So agriculture basically include all the activities which we do for the production of food, for the production of feed, for the production of fiber, for the production of fuel and other products, through a systematic for a systematic practices, and it also includes the rearing of animals, because animal, particularly in our country, animal is the important part of agriculture sector. Now move to the policy. What is the policy? Policy is basically a plan of action, a course of action to guide decisions and achieve predetermined goals. So there are two things. It is basically a plan of action to, which help in taking the decisions and in order to achieve some predetermined goals. Goal may be different from the different sectors, from the different peoples. For like in agriculture sector, we have the goal of improving agriculture economy. This is the broad goal. So there may be different goals. So basically policy, what is there? Policy is basically it is a plan regarding what to do in a particular situation. Suppose we are facing a problem or particular disease in agriculture sector in a particular crop. So in that condition, what we have to do? So that may we can say this is the policy. So policy basically guide a government, a individual, a group of individual to take decisions in a particular situation, in a particular problem situation. So policy invariably includes, there are two things. One is there is some predetermined goals, and another is the plan of action comprising some interrelated and implementable actions. So in policy basically there is some predetermined goals, and in order to achieve that predetermined goal, there is a plan of actions which can be implementable in the field. So policy is basically plan of action to achieve a predetermined goal. And these policy terms can be applied to any public sector or private sector institution or organization or a group or individuals. So it can be applied to any peoples, maybe private sector or public sector, and basically our agenda is to understand the government policy. So in policy is basically a action of the government, and intention that determine those actions. So here again the public policy means a action by the government, and the purpose of this action to determine to achieve some intention of the government's. Intention may be the development of the agriculture sector, intention may be the to provide the price support to the farming economy, these types. So, and then William Jenkins in 1978 defined this term policy. So according to him, the policy is a set of interrelated decisions taken by the political actors or group of political actors concerning the selection of goals and means of achieving them within a specified situations where these decisions should be within the power of those actors to achieve. So so policy is basically interrelated decisions which are taken by the political party. In India, like we can say the party who is in the government, who is in the power, who is governing the country, and decisions related to identification of a goal, and then also the selection of means to achieve that goals, and the political party have the right, they have the power to take the decisions. So this is the basically a policy. So now let us combine these two terms, agriculture and policy. So agriculture policy is basically a plan of actions related to the production of crops or animals, or the integrated practices of crops and animal rearing, and now how to arrange the different inputs. So all these things is part of agriculture policy as individual farmer. Now let us more understand about the agriculture policies. So what it mean by agriculture policy in the government, in the national perspective. So agriculture policy is basically national approach to achieve the agricultural development and a set of activity to implement it. So basically it is a national approach of the agriculture development. How government thinks about the agriculture development, how the agriculture development can be achieved, which type of policy or which type of policy action is required to be implemented in the country. All these things is basically a national policy. And agriculture policy is basically to achieve a specific objective related to the agriculture and its subsectors. So here in agriculture policy basically defined the specific objectives related to agriculture and subsectors. Subsectors may be the horticulture sector, the livestock sector, the fisheries sector, poultry sector, And so there are many subsectors are there. So agriculture policy also relate to the subsector policy. And this term agriculture policy is collectively used for the bundle of various policy related to agriculture sectors. And in India basically agriculture is a state subject. So both the state and national agriculture policy, this both type of policy we will see, because basic decisions is taken by the state government because it is state subject, but national the central government also guide the agriculture action in the country. So we have both type of national agriculture policy and state agriculture policy, so both type of policy we have in the country. And there are maybe different perspective related to agriculture sector. One is the government perspective, another is the organizational perspective. And the government perspective is basically basic principle which get a government to achieve some declared objectives which are in the interest of national community. And in the organizational perspective, is the policy is basically a set of basic principles and associated guidelines and formulated and enforced by the governing body of an organization to direct and limit its action in pursuit of long-term goals. So when we talk about the government perspective, it is basically in the interest of the national community. And when we talk about the organizational perspective, it is in the interest of that organization, long-term objective of the organization, achieving the long-term goal of that organization. But whatever the perspective is there, a policy is a basically projected program of goals and strategies and their consistent practices over a period of time which benefit from the periodic review. And the policy is basically a broad guiding statement that define the mandate and objective of the sectoral agencies. And policy basically aims to provide a comprehensive, integrated and coordinated framework for the management of both human and physical resources towards sectors objectives. And sometimes we understand the planning and policy, both the things are same. The plan and policy, there are two terms we frequently use. Sometimes we use them as interchangeable. Both are same, but there are literally some operational meaning is different for planning and policy. And actually we have started with the planned economy. We have started 5 years planning. So let us first define what is the economic plan. Planning may be defined as a conscious and deliberate choice of mobilizing and directing public and private resources by some public authority, say government, for achieving the predetermined objectives. So economic planning is basically deliberate choice of or decisions regarding how to mobilize, how much to mobilize, and how to direct the public and private resources to achieve predetermined objectives. So objective may be alleviate regional imbalance in the economy. There are two ways to achieve this goal. If the government want to achieve the goal of alleviating regional imbalance in the economic development, some regions are more developed, some regions are less developed. So there is a imbalance is there in the economic development of in different region. So there are two ways. One is the making public investment in the economically backward region. Another way is to encourage the private entrepreneur to invest in the backward region. This may be the there are two ways. Either we have to make either government can make the investment, or government can encourage the private entrepreneur to make the investment in the. So there may be different way, but the goal is to alleviate the regional imbalance in the economic development. So here government take the decisions in the plan. Government identify which way we have to go. Either we have to invest our government money, either we have to, the government encourage the private entrepreneurs to achieve the goal. And so when we talk about the planning and policy links, agriculture planning is basically a part of overall economic planning, and it is prepared and implemented by the government to achieve the well-defined objective in a given time frame. There may be different objectives. Sometimes the objective we have to increase the food grain production. Sometimes we have objective to provide the price support to the farmers' economy. Sometimes achieve objective is to provide the farm input at the low cost by providing the subsidy. There may be objectives. So, it is basically agriculture planning is basically to prepare and implement a government to achieve the well defined objective in a given time frame. So, here in this slide you can understand the difference between the agriculture policy and planning. And agriculture policy is basically, as I told you, it is basically approach and perspective of the government, how government thinks. It is the ideology of the government about the problems, about the solutions. And in terms of agriculture policy, the government may have the long term or short term outlooks, like if they want to improve the farmers' economy in the short terms, they can give the direct benefit by providing them money, by giving them the income support by transferring some money in their account, or in long terms government want to increase the productivity of the land by increasing or by developing their farm resources. So, there may be long term or short term outlook, and may not confine to a, and the policy is basically not confined to sometimes to a very specific time period. And planning basically it is implementation aspect of the policy. If there is a policy, there is policy is to improve the farmers' income, and the planning what we will do, we will plan some activities how we can achieve that objective of increasing the farmers' income. So, basically plans are made to achieve the policy goals. Plans are time bound. Plans are, and we have to implement within a fixed time frame like 5 years plans, 1 year plan. So, we have to implement the plans in the time frames, and with giving the physical and financial investment by giving the fixed amount of physical and financial investment. And the example is that like agriculture policies objective is to provide the food security, and to achieve these policy goals the government have started many programs to grow more food systems. So, things comes in the agriculture policy and agriculture planning. Now, whenever we talk about agriculture policy or any public policy or policy of the any organization or government, these 6 things comes, actually policy is comprised of these 6 different items. One is the vision, mission, objective, strategy, instruments, organization and management. So, we will talk about each elements one by one. Vision is basically a clear statement of what an organization would be like to become or wishes to achieve at some future point of time. So, it is basically very broad, or what government thinks about the problem. So, it is basically very big or very forward looking statement basically from the government side. For example, what would the government like to achieve for the agriculture sector. So, what government want to achieve for agriculture sector? So, they want to develop the sector so that it become a source of food and raw material for the economy, or government want to develop agriculture sector to develop the sector to achieve the broader goal of employment-led national economic growth, poverty alleviation and self-reliance. And mission is, when we translate this vision into a specific statement of goals and priorities, then we call it as a mission. So, mission is basically specific. When we narrow down from the vision, government plans and some policy actions basically. So, mission is basically is to provide a direction and purpose. So, in what way government want to move to solve the agriculture problem. So, for the Indian agriculture sector, mission may be the focus on the agriculture development in well endowed region with with good irrigation, or focus on the fragile area like landfed area, drought prone areas, hill areas, or emphasize broad based growth is spread across the regions, farm size categories or enterprise. Like in 60s basically government started have focused basically on the resource endowed regions where the irrigation facility was there, and so that immediately we can increase the agriculture production. That was the mission was in 1960 to increase the agriculture production in the resource endowed regions, so that we can immediately provide the food to our population. Then objective is basically the specific goals that are desired and that reflect the development of the sectors. Like objective may be the growth in per capita output and real net national product, elevation of poverty of those living below poverty line, better vocation oriented elementary education. So these are the very specific objectives which are measurable objectives, so objectives are basically prioritized in the context of resource requirement and feasibility. So when we comes from mission to the objectives, we see what are the resources available, what are the objectives which can be achieved when we implement a policy action in the country. Then strategies basically relates to the options available for realizing the prioritized objectives. Like we can go for the extensive farming, we can increase the area under cultivation, or we can then maybe second strategy to go for intensive agriculture. We cannot increase the area, we have to grow more crops in per hectare. So we have to increase the cropping intensity. And third strategy may be the increase the scientific knowledge based technical change. So these are the three strategies. If you want to increase the agriculture production in the country, we can go for extensive farming, we can go for intensive agriculture, or we can go modern scientific knowledge based agriculture. Then instruments is basically means by which we achieve the objectives. We want to pursue the objectives, for that instruments is identified. So instrument can be manipulated by the manager to achieve the desired effects, and two broad category of instruments are available in the agriculture sector. One is the price related support prices, subsidy, and the another type of instruments are the non-price related instruments, research and development and extension activities, the infrastructure development, the institutional development. And then lastly, when we talk about the policy, it is the organization and management. So how the policy will be implemented, we have to plan while preparing the policy itself. So what agency will be involved in the implementing the strategy and managing the instruments of policies. So in a case of agriculture sector, basically agriculture sector comprise subsystems which are interlinked and hence need to be managed effectively and efficiently. Actually, agriculture is a very complex subject. There are many subsectors, there are many stakeholders. So whenever we want to implement the agriculture sector, it has to be done very effectively and very efficiently. Now time to sum up this section. Actually, we have understand what is the need for agriculture development. Agricultural development is required to provide the feed, to provide the sufficient income to our large section of the people in the country, and there is a need for changing agriculture policy, because after the globalization, the changing behavior of the consumer and the requirement of even the farming sector has increased. Our agriculture become more of input intensive, and then we have also understood the meaning of the agriculture policy and agriculture policy. So agriculture policy is basically in a plan of action to achieve some predetermined goals, and we have also understood the link between planning and policy. So policy is basically ideology, and the plan is basically the implementation things. And then we have understood the concept of public policy. In that there are 6 things are there: vision, mission, objective, agriculture policy. Thank you very much.